My name is Ellie Murray, and I am a landscape architecture student.
And my name is Kevin Lin, and I'm an architecture student.
And this is our project, Heron Meadow Flows, Reconnecting with Nature. We started by doing some of our own site analysis to just figure out what was the most inspiring to us about the site. And we were really drawn to the endangered bird species mural. Like that was the first thing that we really noticed on the site. So we wanted to make sure to highlight that. And in addition, we also noticed all of the great restoration work that is already happening on site. However, the current way the water moves through the site is not optimal. The water is very channelized down the east side and pools up in the northeast corner, creating sort of a muddy and wet area. And there's only one real entrance to the site, and most people tend to enter in that northwest corner, which isn't necessarily very connected to the Center for the Arts. And there's not a real way to circulate and move through the site as it exists today. So with this in mind, we started thinking a lot about nature and how that's a big part of the meadow, and how these how the wildlife and plantings on the site are really interconnected with water and people, and how all of these change over time and work together to create really vibrant experiences. And so we wanted to use this site as an opportunity to highlight how nature can change throughout time and really make this process visible to visitors so that they can begin to reconnect through nature by observing these different changes. So to do this, we started by creating one main loop that takes visitors through the entire site. And there are two main entrances, one that corresponds to the current main entrance and one that pulls off of the parking lot from the VCA to connect the two sites. And along the path, there are a series of nodes that encourage visitors to explore and interact with the site in other ways. And each of these nodes has a similar typology. We've called it a snag typology. And so this similar vertical form of sort of wood planks that support different types of habitat, but also support different types of human uses and play, as well as rest throughout the site as well. And as you can see in this section here, there are many different types of spaces created across the site, especially with the plantings. And so there's the open field in the middle, but there's also groves of trees and the wildflower areas that line the bird mural and wetland spaces to interact with as well. And this section demonstrates how the path in the southwest corner weaves down and navigates that steep grade in order to keep this fully wood chipped path ADA accessible across the whole site. A big emphasis we have is experiencing the different changes that nature can bring over time, and that especially comes into play with the seasonal colors of the plantings. And from these plans, you can see that over the seasons, the site will change in color as well as in wetness. And so how the water flows through the site changes seasonally, and this is aided by these beaver dam analogs, which are man-made structures and facilitate the ponding and pooling of water in certain areas and allow it to meander and flow through the site more organically rather than continuing to be channelized down the east side and give it a more natural, organic feel. You can see through this section that cuts through that eastern edge how over different seasons with different amounts of water, different parts of the site will be more or less wet, and the water will pond and pool in different areas as well. And again, the plantings are an important aspect of this project. There are three sort of areas that we have focused in on. There's the wildflower meadow spaces, the second growth forest areas, and the wetland plantings. All of these species are native species. They've been chosen because they attract specific pollinators and birds to the site that are all very beneficial to the ecosystem and provide a variety of colors and textures across the site and complement the existing plantings to sort of expand on what's already there. And as you can see through this color wheel, how the plants change in color throughout the year. And you can really know what time of year it is by what colors you see at the meadow and how your experience can change over the course of time.
And I will talk about the activities that we can see that can happen on site of how people can interact with nature. The first point that we have is the Heron Meadow Educational Center. As Ellie has described, the main focus of our design is nature, the idea of wildlife as the ultimate client and people as the beneficiary. So most of our site is dedicated to the rehabilitation of nature, and the northern site is our only point of focus where people are given the foreground. And this is because there's this beautiful milk barn that's existing on the site that unfortunately is falling apart right now. So we're looking to repurpose this milk barn and make this area an area where you can oversee the Heron Meadow, a place with a workshop, a field office, and an educational center. These are photos of the existing conditions of the milk barn. As you can see, the current problem with the milk barn is not only that it is falling apart, but because of the grade change of the site, there isn't a direct access towards the meadow, which is the southern point of the facade. There's only an entry point at the western side, and this is because of that 3.3 feet drop at the southern end. Right now, the field office, the Veteran Nature Center, they're using a container that was installed at the right side of this milk barn where they use it as their field office. And this is our conceptual diagrams of how we intend on repurposing this milk barn into an educational center. Some key points that we would like to talk about is that we really like the scale of the milk barn on the site. It does not overwhelm the Heron Meadow with its scale. It fits in with its materiality and scale. So our goal is really to keep this scale while adding additional programs to it. So the idea is to extrude the milk barn to the eastern end with new building that is attached to it. And then at the third phase, as you can see, we look to peel off the facade of the southern end to make it an open structural system where it's free for entry at all points. As you can see on the last diagram, this creates this circulation that it both goes east and west and north and south. So it creates maximum interactivity with the meadow at the southern point and the beaver dam at the eastern point. This is the plan of our proposed Heron Meadow Educational Center. As you can see, the solid walls that is pochade in black with a 20 feet by 30 feet dimension is the existing milk barn. We see to repurpose this into a field office, and then attach a greenhouse that is 30 feet wide at the eastern end. This greenhouse serves as an indoor lab, a place for learning for the children's and also for the people at the Vashon Nature Center to test out their experiment and look at really test out the health of the meadow right now. The greenhouse also serves as a place for heat gain, where it really can heat up the building at the field office at the left, and also increase permeability to channelize the water from the roof to the beaver dam analogs at the eastern side. Three major points of this design is the southern facing veranda, where it does not only serve as a circulation point, but it also serves as a place for mingling. During when it's raining, people can be inside the veranda, facing each other, making use of the existing foundation wall as a place of seating, to create this kind of hearth at the interior envelope. But when it's sunny and nice outside, this could be extended to the meadow at the southern end, where the people could be facing the meadow and perch on the grass and create this expanding kind of hearth. Lastly, it's the idea of education. We would like to use education as a way to increase community engagement, educate the visitors on the short-term and long-term goals of the Vashon Nature Center on Heron Meadow. This serves, as you can see, with that blue arrow that visualizes the circulation point, making use of the walls that the visitors can pass through. These walls would have panels of timelines, diagrams, basically the phases of how Heron Meadow will be rehabilitated. And this is a perspective of what we envision. This, as you can see, this is the Heron Meadow Educational Center with the meadow facing the south and the beaver dam analogs at the eastern end. And as Ellie has mentioned previously, our main concept is the idea of this loop that serves as the main circulation point, and these nodes that extend from it, where it is free for the visitors to explore. It's a suggestive route, and this diagram kind of shows the idea of it. The idea is really the storytelling loop, which works both ways on an entry. You can go to the right, you can go to the left. It just tells a different type of story. For example, if you go to the right, you would first be brought to Britt Frieda's bird murals of a climate endangered bird species that used to be on the site but no longer exist. So you'll see that the birds that aren't that used to be here but aren't here anymore. And then as you continue along the path, you'll reach the bird blinds, where you'll reach the new growth forest that we intend to propose, where the birds will eventually be invited back because the habitat would be one that they are used to. And here you would see these birds in their natural habitat in action, and you would be a bystander, really just be at the background, just observing them. As you continue down the path, you would reach the BDA play stumps, which would tell you the story of the water, of how the wetland is helping rehabilitate the site with the nutrients that it brings in. And you also reach the meadow and eventually back to the Heron Meadow Educational Center, where it provides the vision of what the Vashon Nature Center intends to do. And if you flip this story around, it works both ways. And here are some vignettes of the bird blinds and the bird snags. So as you can see right now, Heron Meadow, the trees are still very young. They're around 10 years. And the new growth forest that we plan to plant would only grow from now. So growing the trees takes a while. So the idea is, how can we speed up this process? How can we invite the natural habitat earlier, like before the trees are fully grown? And the idea, we were inspired by an artist called Lynn Ho, who is a natural artist, and her bird snags. So the idea is to have these bird snags mimic the future canopy of the forest and have areas where the birds can perch on and create their nests. And these bird snags would work on the 40 years before the trees really grow into the height where they can really protect the birds from their habitat, in their habitat. And also there's the bird blinds that would be, there would be two bird blinds where visitors would be able to observe at a distance of these birds in their natural habitat. And here's the diagram of the beaver dam analogs. Right now on the site, there are red cedars at the northwestern end of the site. These were planted before the Vashon Natural Center came into Heron Meadow. Red elders do not grow for a long time. Their life expectancy is around 60 years. So we were told that they would only live for, the existing elders would only live for another 20 years. So we had this idea of using red elders as a material to build beaver dams. And then also this cycle of materials where something is grown on the site and then reused continuously. So the red elders would be used to build beaver dam analogs. And eventually when these beaver dam analogs start to decay, they can act as nurse logs to grow new red elders.
This timeline then begins to discuss more about the diversity of plants on site and how it can attract a more diverse species population. And so all of the plants were chosen because they bloom at certain times or provide habitat or food that support specific pollinators that then also help support all of the bird species that are shown on the bird mural on site. And to further continue that story of bringing the birds you see on the wall back to the site in real life as well. And so each line sort of shows you their growth rate of the plants as well as their mature heights over time.
This is our timeline for the new growth forest. This timeline demonstrates our 100-year plan. We believe that a plant's life on the site doesn't end when it dies, but is instead reutilized on the site in a new way, showcasing the cycles of nature. This echoes our core values of process, succession, cycles of life, all as a part of the site. Rehabilitating Heron Meadow into a coniferous forest, which was the original forest habitat in Vashon, is our main goal. And we intend to do this while creating diversity in canopy height and density. Each tree has different growth rates, and our plan is to phase each species according to growth rates and canopy height to create a timeline of succession. An example of succession would be the older trees. As previously mentioned, they not only act as beaver dam analog materials and nurse logs, they also have the fast-growing nature makes them an ideal choice to act as the early canopy during the early phases before the coniferous forest matures. Species such as the violet green swallows and the red-breasted nuthatches like to create nesting cavities on trees at around 15 feet to 30 feet high. This allows them to be re-invited back into the site at early phases before the coniferous forest matures. These diverse arrays of species creates this ever-changing human experience over time. This is our phasing plan for the Heron Meadow. Our first priority for phasing is grading for the path and planting new trees, as the trees take a while to grow, as previously mentioned, along with installing bird snags and updating the existing milk barn structure. Phasing of the site plan can be done over any time scale. Whatever becomes appropriate for the meadow and the constituents, things can be implemented over time if necessary.
And finally, we have a vignette of our vision for the future of the Heron Meadow. We feel that the meadow has a great potential to become a pocket of nature, an opportunity to learn and play, and a place for the community to reconnect with the ecosystem of the island and gather as one. And we hope that you've enjoyed our presentation, and we look forward to seeing how the meadow changes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.